taking care of the water. There's either not enough or too much, and the quality, because there's always, the more population you have to support, the more pollution that creates. And but when Randy and I and our team built the stormwater treatment areas, phase 1 it was called, it was under the Florida Forever Act, created by the legislature, state legislature, and we had so we got our bearings, and the first group that came in, the district thought they had to hire everybody from the outside to do the work. Well, they screwed it up because they didn't understand the state bureaucracy.
Yeah, sure.
And so I'll tell you a story. We flew up to Tallahassee to make a presentation to the state legislature. By then, we had them all calmed down because we had the project on time and within budget. Believe it or not.
Yeah, especially for a state project. Never in budget.
But Randy and I could do it, and because neither one of us are bureaucrats, we're CBs.
Yeah, exactly.
And so we flew up on September 10th, and
the family's here. Hi.
We got up the next morning, and we were down in the cafeteria, kind of going over our stuff, and in the legislative building, and we somebody, I have my back. There's cafeteria TVs all over the place, and but I had my back. I was concentrating on the presentation and so forth, and kind of reviewing what we were going to say, and to bring everybody up to date, because it was a joint legislative committee. It was people from the Senate and House.
Okay.
So anyhow.
And was this going to be talking about the next budget or approval for more funding, or?
Just it was an update.
It was an update. Okay.
And so somebody said, "Oh, look at that! Somebody flew into the to the towers. Somebody flew into the towers."
So you guys were there to do the
And of course we had rented a car to get from the airport to because we flew up in a district plane, and we Randy wasn't with me, but I did all the dirty work as far as dealing with the politician.
Okay.
And so I shouldn't say it that way.
But it's
Some of those were good.
I know.
People, they were interested in success, and but anyhow, so that shut down everything, as you know.
Yeah.
And so we just called Hertz and said, "Hey Hertz, we're driving back in the Hertz rental car," and that's how that went.
Wow.
So
Wow.
we had a short flight up and a long ride home.
Yeah.
But that's the way.
Now, he told me about you guys flew in helicopters sometimes, and I guess your pilot that you knew, they used all the time.
Mike Picone?
Yeah, there you go.
Picone.
He said you used to nod out while you're in the helicopter, and he'd wake you up and you tell him exactly what's going on.
Yeah, Randy got a big kick out of it.
Dad.
Randy was in the helicopter several times, and he says, I could just look down on the ground figure out where we're at and begin a briefing.
He said they could not believe you could just pop up in 2 seconds and know exactly what you're
Yeah.
looking at.
But, you know, that humdrum and,
Sure.
you know, put you to sleep.
Sure.
So, anyhow, yeah, that's the way that went. But the reason I said your timing is good is because my daughter, if you have anything that you were going to give us,
Uh-huh.
that Sandy talked, or Randy talked about,
It's done. But
I got to make this official. All right. So, in honor of your service, and on behalf of the Navy and my brother Randy, I want to present to you the CB Combat Warfare Specialist Commendation Medal for your service in the Reserve Naval Mobile Construction CB 14 Battalion and your distinction as a plank owner.
Thank you. Appreciate that. You got a picture of it?
Well, they'll get that, yeah. And then Randy put in here a 50 CD sticker.
Oh, 50th anniversary.
50th anniversary. And then my little contribution is a challenge coin from the Miami field office.
Oh, excellent.
So, and on the back of that, it's kind of cool. So on the back of this, you can see both sides. Well, I'm gonna take it out. I'm gonna take it out. So this guy, you got speckles. Can you read that? How good are your eyes? My eyes need glasses. Let me see if I can read this. Here we go. So this is our different, we have what are called resident agencies. So we've got Key West, Homestead,
Yeah.
West Palm Beach, and Fort Pierce. And on the front side, it says Miami Division, Federal Bureau of Investigation. We got flamingos and everything
Beautiful.
there.
That's a
So
beautiful thing.
it's a real cool coin. I like those.
Yeah. Sandy, I want you to guard.
So guard them with
these
your life.
oh well, it'll go in my
Here, I'll
safe.
slide this back in here for you.
Okay. Sandy, this goes on my civilian attire
Okay.
when I go to church. Abigail.
Don't mind me, I'm just pulling the trash. You guys okay?
Yeah, we're good.
Abigail,
Go
I
ahead,
just
go ahead, go
wanted
ahead.
to-
so
Okay,
sorry.
I know.
Abigail, I wanted to say something to you.
Yes.
Thank you for today. And Joey, my son, reminded me that you were here when I came in to begin with.
Oh, yes, I was. Yeah,
And he remembered that.
on the other side.
And so, I'm thankful for your service.
Well, you are so welcome. It's my pleasure.
So this goes on my civilian attire,
Okay.
on my collar, you know,
Okay.
and it'll show an achievement
Right.
for
And
service.
then on the CDs, how do you actually earn that as a CD?
Yes.
Oh, you
You
have
would
to,
label it.
Yeah. I
Frank
just,
asked me and I didn't.
oh, yeah. So I just put the whole
You have
bag
to
in
do
there so they're all
many
together.
things.
And I just
Uh,
put his name on the bag.
Okay, thank you.
Fire weapons.
That way it doesn't like
Qualified.
disappear. So it
you
doesn't-
know,
I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
Thank you.
and there's a number of things, you know. Your name's Frank, right?
Chris.
Chris. I retired in 96, so it's like another life.
Yeah, sure.
If you think back. But I got my pin embroidered on my
Lapel.
camis. Well, we weren't wearing even camis at that time. We were wearing just plain green utility
Okay.
uniform. And, but anyhow, I have it embroidered on my utilities, and, but I always wanted a one that I could display it for the, when I was in civilian attire.
Yeah.
And,
No, that's great.
so,
I called Randy one time. He was in, I think, South Carolina doing some battalion work, and I just called up and I had to talk to him about something. I said, "Hey, can you let me talk to Randy Boucher?" And they said, "Sorry, sir, we don't have anybody by that name." And I said, "Well, I'm pretty sure he's there. I'm pretty sure he's working there." I said, "Well, how about Captain Boucher?" "Oh, yes, sir. Right away, sir." And it's like,
Oh, my
and when I got
gosh.
Randy, he said,
That's
"Nobody knows my first name." He
Right.
said, "It's always Captain
Yeah,
Boucher."
yeah, that's the way that goes. Well, I didn't retire as a captain. I retired as a commander,
Okay.
and the reason I would have made captain, I'm pretty sure, but I ran out of time because I had enlisted when I was 17.
Wow.
I was going to join in the delayed entry program. So when I graduated from high school, then I would go to boot camp. But I got injured in football, and I couldn't. I was on crutches. I couldn't pass the Navy physical, so I had to wait until my birth date is October 9th, 1936, and so I had to wait until I healed up and could walk without crutches, and that was January 19th, 1954. I was still in high school, but in fact, you know, I played shortstop. I was on the baseball team that year, and actually 2 years previous. But the football injury messed up. Even though my parents they have to sign for you when you're 17. You can't go in unless the parents sign, and they were willing to do that. So that's why. But anyhow, I went in, no broken service, Chris. I had 2 years of obligated, total of 8 years obligated service. 2 years of it active, and then I re-enlisted, you know, because I got into Seabees,
Yeah.
you know, and
Now that got you through your civil engineering schooling, so you got your
I got
degree
some
in
of
it?
my civil engineering schooling through that,
The ROTC
yeah,
setup.
and the officers' school in Port Hueneme, which is where the West Coast Seabees
Yeah.
are at.
Yeah.
They have a school out there for civil engineer officers, warrant officers, and regular commission officers. And so, but anyhow, the point is, I just kept getting promoted from every time I came up, but because I had to make first class petty officer in order to apply for warrant officer, and you know the certain things you have to do. You can't get passed over for promotion, and so I did everything right, but it took longer.
It just
than-
takes a long time.
You know, like Randy, he went right out of university into the Corps of Engineers
Right.
and then transferred to the CV, but he was always an officer. I wasn't always was.
Yeah, it takes a while to get to that point.
I
then.
was 13 years as enlisted, and then 13 years as a warrant officer, and then I got promoted to Lieutenant JG, and then progressively moved on up the ladder from Lieutenant JG to Lieutenant, then Lieutenant Commander. It was when I was Lieutenant Commander, I was actually working for Randy.
Okay.
That was part of it, and
And was that out here, sort of in South Carolina, North Carolina thing, or where was that
Yeah.
at?
it was in Jacksonville,
Okay. Yeah.
Florida,
Yeah. Okay.
Naval Air Station,
Yeah.
Jacksonville. That's where our headquarters were. But before that, during Desert Shield, Desert Storm, I had a guy that remembered me when I was a warrant officer, that probably was a senior lieutenant or lieutenant commander. His name was Paul Rosser, and at the time, at the early stages of Desert Shield, which was the preparation stage of this Desert Storm,
Sure.
right? And he remembered me, and he knew I was attached to the regiment in Gulfport, Mississippi, as kind of head of an inspection team that would inspect other reserve battalions and, go around wherever they were at, training and so forth, and evaluate them. He called me and he said, "Hey Joe, how you doing?" This is Paul Rosser. "Yes, sir." Set to attention, And he said, "Hey, I need a good training officer, assistant training officer. Can you come to work for me?" What are you going to say? So when I was there at Gulfport when he called me, so I went directly to his headquarters, and he was the top civil engineer in the Navy. It was called the First Naval Construction Brigade, and so when I walked into his office, he threw a book across the desk. He's here, I want you to read this. So I can't talk to you about it too much right now because of classification. And so I read the book in about 3 or 4 days, and to have an understanding of how the Muslim segment of the Middle East functions, and how the two different sects keep each other under control.
Sure.
And Hussein, if you recall, when he went into Kuwait, to get their oil, he just overextended himself, because we had a pretty savvy president, and George H.W. Bush. And George H.W. Bush was probably one of the youngest pilots in the naval aviation. He got shot down, actually, and got rescued by an American submarine at sea. And but anyhow, he had a feel for what you do, and so his son didn't do as well, by far, because he said at that time Colin Powell was the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, and General Schwarzkopf was the field general, Schwarzkopf. And so both knew how to fight a war. And okay, what's our objective? You know, what do we want to accomplish? When we get it done, we go home.
Right.
You know, so it was a 90-day war. We spent 9 months preparing, but it only took us 90 days to chase Hussein back to his palace, and we got criticized. Why didn't you knock him out? You know, why didn't you kill him? No, because he was of a different sect of the Muslims, as opposed to Iran. You know, and so Iran and Iraq would fight each other and periodically and so forth, and they would control, and we didn't have to police any of that.
Sort of kept each other in check.
Yeah. So anyhow, that's how that worked out, and it was after that I hooked up with Randy as his XO in the battalion after the war. You know, after the first Gulf War, but we didn't fight. You know, the wars that, like Afghanistan, we spent 20 years there, trillions of dollars.
Yeah.
What did we get, Chris? What did we get?
Yeah.
You know, what a waste of money.
Well, and like you're saying, I think, and especially from my understanding, is I think we don't understand the fact that there are tribal peoples. They're never gonna be
That's
democracy
right.
type peoples.
You can't.
And so
Their
whoever's got
culture.
the biggest stick is
Yeah.
is in control, and
Yeah.
they know that. So they all want to have pretty even sticks, and they all stay even.
Yeah,
We just don't understand that mentality. So we try to impose our Western society on them, and it doesn't work.
yeah.
And so, I mean, Russia did the same thing. Russia made the same mistake. We didn't even listen, pay attention to history. We made the same mistake again.
Yeah,
And it was it's just, yeah. I think we
So-
just don't understand.
that was that. But
Now, how many trips did you end up doing overseas just for the Navy Reserve?
Rhoda, several deployments. I took a couple of, when I was a lieutenant, I took a couple of detachments over to Rhoda, Spain. Rhoda's a Spanish base that's owned by but they allow us to be there, and we, of course, in return, build certain things for them.
Sure.
And
Now, do the other countries, did they
Panama.
would you go give either seminars or help their engineers develop things, teach them
I
our
went,
techniques?
I went to Panama to scope out a project, for an incoming reserve battalion and things like that.
Yeah.
I can't pull them up all
No, yeah.
in my brain right now, but I'll tell you, it was a near full-time job to be in that position, and I never got to, as we say in the Navy, I never got passed over for promotion. So when special officer selection programs came up, I went twice to Washington to participate in the selection board, which is rather, an honor, to be entrusted with making the best of the best selection.
Right. So they're having you decide who's going to be the next officer candidates?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
They have a warrant officer program and an LDO program, and that's two of the programs that I was involved in a selection board activity. But that was,
Now,
I
why
remember
don't,
one time, man, it was cold. The naval annex, where the selection boards met was up the hill from the Pentagon.
okay.
And, but I was quartered at, officers' quarters in, up the street. I walked from where I was quartered to where we met, but I remember those walks, it must have been 20 below zero. Couldn't dress warm enough, you know. But,
And you're in your total officer outfit?
yeah, of
Officer?
course, yeah.
So you're not. Yeah.
So, anyhow, it took me a long time because of my progression and the different stages I had to go through, that by the time I made commander, I didn't really have enough time to put time and grade before I was 60. So when I was 60, I retired.
Yep, yep, yep.
They said, we don't need any more civil engineers. Goodbye, Joe.
Thank you for your service.
Yeah. So you know, I wouldn't change it for the
No,
world.
yeah.
It was,
Well, now, my question, though, is why haven't you and Randy gone out to California and fixed their water problems? Randy and I have talks about that all the
I'll tell you
time.
that-
It is
that's-
so crazy.
political
Yes.
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 Yeah.
It's so crazy.
jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's,
And Florida's pretty well set up, right? I mean, we're.
well, they have a good system. They have 5 water management districts. And like the South Florida Water Management District is within the Kissimmee, Lake Okeechobee, Florida Bay area.
And does that cover all the way down to Key West then, or what?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it actually includes Key West. But Key West has to get their fresh water from an aqueduct in Florida City. And when Hurricane Andrew hit, actually Randy was in command of a battalion at the time, and and President H.W. Bush was the president, and he ordered a part of our battalion to Florida City. We encamped on the Florida City water utility property, and actually integrated with the active duty battalion that was there, and was earmarked where our primary job was to get the public schools roofs back on, you know.
Oh, wow.
And so that was another part of our, you know, you never know.
You guys do a little bit of
Hurricane
everything.
Andrew
Yeah, do a little bit of everything.
was like one big tornado. You know, it was a terrible
Yeah,
hurricane.
yeah.
So we had lots of, and when I say we, you know, when I was XO under Randy, I would take off from work from the Water Management District, and on a Thursday night, drive up to Jacksonville and ask Jax, and spend Friday preparing for the main contingent of the battalion to come into for training, because you couldn't get anything done, you know, because you were going from putting out fires and
Sure.
and that's what the XO does, you know. And the XO is actually commander of troops, and so
So now, were you up there every weekend, or a couple of weekends a month, or how
no,
often was it?
it was normally just one weekend a month, but
Okay.
it would be a 4-day event for me. I would spend Friday preparing, Saturday and Sunday doing the the role of a XO, and then Monday I would do some cleanup work and have and wrap up the activity. But there's active duty people that manage the reserve command headquarters there, and we have heavy equipment and so forth that has to be maintained and so forth. But anyhow, I needed those 2 days of kind of quietness where I could get something done, and seemed to work out okay. And the good thing about, I worked for the Water Management District, and they were very generous on military leave.
Yeah.
They would, I'd take military leave and get paid for that time, which means, I was making pretty good money at the time at the Water Management District, because I was high up. I was Public Works Director, and so, during Desert Shield, during Desert Storm, I didn't lead Gulfport, but I did coordinate in dealing with moving reserve battalions into backfill active duty battalions as they moved to fight the war. Now we sent two reserve battalions to the war front, but the other reserve battalions went into backfill, like in Guam, Puerto Rico, and so forth, and so that's what I spent some time in doing, but there was never a dull moment. Never a dull moment.
No, that's so cool. No, it's great to hear the stories. Randy said, "Now, so tell me a little bit of your brother, Joey,
Yeah.
is a little speed racer demon on the
Not
motorcycles."
anymore. He had this last accident, right, Dad?
Yeah.
No more.
Yeah,
He's done.
he worried us.
Randy said he broke just about every bone in his body.
Oh God.
God saved him.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
He crashed in Homestead. He was racing in Homestead. He raced several up and down the East Coast, and he was ranked pretty high as a competitor. And but we got a call, my wife and I, and Joey, I just wanted to. The message was, I just wanted to let you know that they just took Joey to the Homestead Hospital,
They flew him.
and so forth. So we got in our car and we headed towards Homestead, and fortunately, unfortunately, the halfway down, we got another phone call. Whoop! He just got airlifted, trauma hawked, to the trauma center in Miami.
Oh, shoot.
So, you know, our heart sank.
Yeah, for sure.
And but when we got there, Sandy knows
Yeah, it was.
she.
I called.
Now, is he younger or older than you? Joey?
I'm the oldest, then my
Okay.
sister, Cheryl,
Okay.
and then Joey's the
So
baby.
the baby. Okay.
He's always gonna be the baby. But he's a good leader, you know. Are you a pastor?
I have historically been, but now I'm not. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So I was at our church in California. We helped Marie and I helped we go to Calvary Chapel, so we helped start a couple of Calvary chapels, and I
That's
was the
wonderful.
assistant pastor for a while, doing that. And then, but I don't, as a normal business,
Yeah.
normal work wise, I don't. I help out once in a while, but now since we moved out here to Florida, I haven't been doing that. So yeah, but.
But when we got down there, he was conscious and calm, you know.
Yeah,
He
no big deal.
It was hard to talk
He had
because he had
broken-
broken some ribs.
He had
Oh,
broken
wow.
some ribs.
I had called the emergency room and I said, please just let me hear his voice.
Yeah,
Oh.
They let him, he said, tell mom and dad I'm okay.
yeah.
You know,
Oh.
but we were crying. Now.
No,
We
for
were
sure.
scared.
No, for sure.
Yeah,
How long was he in the hospital that time?
I don't know how long was he?
Probably a week, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah,
But this
he was a quick healer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I assume he just got right back on the bike again after
He
that?
did.
Yeah.
We wanted to just kill him, you know. It's just like, what are you doing? This
Yeah.
last accident, though, Dad, was the worst accident he's had.
Yeah.
Because he had to have reconstructive surgery
Oh,
on
jeez.
his left hand, his right, because he's left-handed,
Okay.
and his knee. And he had a helmet on, so.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, the helmet saved his
Scary.
life.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
I mean, you have to throw the helmet away after the encounter with the ground.
There you go.
But
this
The-
is us.
you know, I'm Baptist, so
Oh, okay.
it doesn't appeal to me. But still, the in the language of the what do you call
Him.
Tommy Wilson's job?
Paramedic.
Paramedic. I got a grandson that's a paramedic, and he said, and he and his wife, who's also an in-charge nurse of the largest trauma center in Orlando, and he's a firefighter, paramedic for 12 years. But he said we were there when you had your triple bypass, and of course I was out when they were there. You know,
Yeah,
I didn't know
sure.
for nothing.
No, sure.
And he said, "You're what we call in the trade Hail Mary." You follow?
Yeah.
So
Well, it sounds like you and Joey both have a lot of Hail Marys.
yeah,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
My mom, we had so many times we were at the hospital as kids growing up that the hospital knew us by first names. And she goes,
Oh my goodness.
and we were raised Catholic, and she goes, "You got so many guardian angels around you. The only you guys are putting them to work."
yeah.
But you'll like the story too, because so as we grew up, I got confirmed at 13 in the Catholic Church and everything. But right at that time, my dad, for Christmas, he got me a bicycle.
Yeah.
So I said, "Come on, Dad, let's go ride a bicycle." So I was, I don't know, probably 13, 14 years old, something like that. And we're right.
Visitors, it is now 7:30 p.m. Visiting hours will be over at 8 p.m. Again, attention visitors, it is now 7:30 p.m. Visiting hours will be over at 8 p.m. Thank you.
So we're riding up by the Catholic Church. They put in a brand new parking lot, and
Uh-huh.
the parking lot still had like dusty dirt on it from the brand new parking lot. So we're riding around, and I'm being a cool little young kid, and I spin around the corner, and "Come on, Dad, catch me!" And he's riding on his bike, and he comes around the corner, slips, hits the ground, and the bike flipped over. And I didn't see this, but his ankle was completely the opposite way, so it just shattered his knee.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't see it. He just goes, "You better go back up and get Mom and bring Mom down." And so I run up right up the hill real quick on my bicycle. bring him down. Well, he went in the hospital and he had to have traction. He had to do surgery and put him in traction for 6 months. Well, he almost died 3 or 4 times because he had ulcers from sitting still in the bed.
Yeah.
Well, the priest came in the first time, but then the second and third time he almost died. They just didn't show up. They were too busy or whatever.
Yeah.
So my mom said, okay, that's it. We're not going to church anymore.
Oh, no.
So right about 13, 14, 15, we just never went to church anymore.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then I met this lovely lady 40 years ago. I met this lovely lady in Miami,
She is lovely.
and
Yes.
she her family grew up a Southern Baptist.
Amen.
In Cuba.
Jesus.
So now get this. So we go, and I figured, well, I'm her boyfriend. I better start going to church with her. You know, I gotta get in her good graces. So we went to church the very first Sunday. The Southern Baptist pastor goes, "All Catholics are going to hell." I'm sitting in the audience and I go, I don't know if I like this church. So we started looking for different churches, and we ended up getting married, coming out to California, and we started going to community church, and finally we found Calvary Chapel.
Uh-huh.
Now Calvary Chapel is basically just go verse by verse, right through the Bible, evangelical Christians.
Chuck Smith. I
You know,
don't know if you've
very
ever
good
heard of him.
relationships with the
Chuck
Baptist
Smith.
church and
Yeah.
everything.
He started the Jesus Movement.
Yeah, and so what was interesting is I, of course, was the kind of kid that, you know, I was 21, and I don't want to go to church. You know, we got football games on Sunday.
Yeah.
But okay, I'll go to church with you.
Yeah.
And so go to church, and I'm the first one out there. Let's get home, watch football. Well, she fell in love with taking care of the little kids, and
Yeah.
so we had our church was big enough where we had 3 services. So she would stay there and say, "Okay, you go home. I'm going to stay and take care of the kids for the next service." Sure enough, one Sunday or 2 Sundays, whatever this was, some lady that was helping her, I think went out on pregnancy leave. She was going to be gone from church. And she goes, "Come on, can you help me? I need your help." Well, we were doing the toddlers. Well, then I know this, now I know this, but didn't know it at the time, but God used that to get me to fall in love with helping out.
Yeah.
So we started, I started helping out with her, and I don't know, probably 6 months later, all of a sudden now I'm the last guy out of church. And she's trying to drag me out.
I love it. See, God had a plan.
Yeah, exactly right.
He always
Exactly right.
does.
And
Yeah.
what was interesting for her, though, in Cuba, her family was very different from what you think, is that
Yeah.
they were actually Baptists in Cuba, which
Oh,
is
wow.
predominantly Catholic.
Catholic.
Yeah.
And so they were kind of a weird animal down there, and so she's been going to Baptist church all the time, and then we
Yeah, we never went to the Catholic church.
Yeah. So it was very interesting. But no, so Randy was almost a priest. Jack was almost a priest.
Yeah.
Two of my brothers.
Wow.
And so
Well, he's when he mentioned you over the phone, and he said that he was going to use you to get this stuff up to me.
You're a blessing.
That
Both of you.
Thank you.
was,
Thank you.
Your dad
he spoke
is.
very
Thank you.
proudly of you.
no, yeah.
And I can I tell you one more story?
Oh,
It's a short
please.
story.
Yeah.
Please.
I didn't tell you how I met my wife, but she was a Southern belle from West Palm Beach.
Huh?
And we met when she was up north where I lived. I'm from Toms River, New Jersey, and that's where I grew up. But she was up there visiting relatives, and we got introduced and so forth.
Oh, look at this, babe. See, keep it right there. I'll do this.
It's your wedding picture.
Oh, that's beautiful.
That's a good movie star.
What year was that?
1959.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So we got married, but have you ever heard of a blind spot that God will let you have for a while? I had a blind spot, and I always thought of Reverend Bill Billingsley, who was the pastor of Belvedere Baptist Church at the time, as one of the key people who helped plant the seed
Sure,
and
sure,
get me
sure.
started. Because to give you an idea of my idea, I my parents were respectful of God and everything, but I just thought Jesus was a good Jew, you know?
Sure.
And so I always give credit to the fundamental pastors that I served under and their staff, the Sunday school superintendent and so forth, for leading me to the Lord ultimately. And it took something like 7 years before I think Joey was born, wasn't it? Sandy, I think.
64, yeah. I was born in 60,
when I got
64.
saved, but the blind spot was so obvious. Was Dottie, my wife. She was the one that said, I would have got married to, Justice of Peace. She said, Joe, I'd like to get married at church. Okay.
How about that?
Yeah. And she was a true Southern belle, and calm, cool, and collected, right?
Best mom in the whole
and-
world. Oh,
And
it's precious.
but I had that blind spot until, I don't know, about 2 or 3 months ago. My son was driving with dear Dottie because she's in an assisted living facility with short-term memory problems. She knows who I am. She didn't have any problem with that. Does she? But anyhow, he had her in the car. She likes to go get Frosties. So he was in the car, and God lifted that. It brings tears to my eyes. She was the one that planted the seed originally, and God held it back until the right time to make me appreciate it even more, And I just praise Jesus.
Yep.
I have my cross. I sleep with it
Yeah, I saw
next
that.
to my heart
Yeah.
at night, because we live in an evil world,
Yep.
Yes.
and there's nothing we can do about that. It's gonna be that way, and but anyhow, that I wanted you to know how I come about to find the Lord, and I didn't know who planted. I didn't know who planted the seed until about 60 years later.
Oh.
It's so obvious. I don't know. I didn't think.
Well, I say that Maria plays dirty pool because what she'll do. We learned this right in our marriage, about 3 or 4 years into our marriage, and again, like you, we had a pastor that was one of our best friends that sort of helped us through those early times.
Yeah.
And I say she plays dirty pool because she won't nag me. She'll just pray to God to change me.
Yeah.
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 Well, I learned that because my mom and dad, both being red-blooded Cubans, were just, they weren't disrespectful, but they would yell at each other. And I was thinking, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be the nagging wife.
Yeah.
And so I used to go to women's Bible study, and then we were going over the Proverbs woman, Proverbs 31. And the example that she gave, and so we learned that instead of, if I yell at Chris and he might change for a week or a month,
Yeah.
but eventually he goes back.
Yeah.
But if I leave it to God, then God changes his heart and is gone. And I'm going, okay, I'll go for that one. I don't want it. Right. It takes a longer time, but I don't care. So that's what I try. I mean, I'm sure a lot of the times I say what's on my mind, but a lot of the times, I try to go to God and ask him to do it. But I first say, well, if it's me, because sometimes, you can see the fault in somebody else when it's really big in your life, So, because it could be me instead of the poor guy.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
but
Praise
also
God.
too, my dad. The reason we ended up in the Baptist church, because both my mom and my dad were brought up not very religious. But my dad, when he was 15, he met a young girl in Cuba, and he fell in love with her. But she was Baptist,
Yeah.
so he wanted to date her. But she said, "I don't date non-Christians," and so he went to church with her. And so he fell in love with her madly. And then there was some storm. And back then, you know, the light switches were right behind the bed. And there was lightning. And somehow it killed her in her bed while she was sleeping. It was, my dad was he was just so mad at God, right? And then later on, 11 years later, he married my mom. And then communism took over, and that really destroyed, you know, our lives, and my dad and mom's. And so
That was something else I was involved in with the Bay of Pigs and
Oh.
Cuban Missile Crisis.
but anyway, but that experience with that young girl was the reason that my dad took us to the Baptist church.
Okay.
He didn't take us to any other church because he said when he went with her to church, it was this famous Baptist preacher in Cuba.
Yeah.
Just a manly guy, Gonzalez was his name, and I still remember him because I was 8 when I first started going. And he was just, the only time we had peace was when we would sing hymns, and he would preach the word, verse by verse.
Yeah.
And so all of us, you know, grew up like that. We came over, and also to some of the Catholic churches over there were mixed in with Santeria, which is like voodoo.
Yeah.
My dad didn't like any of that. So that's another reason we didn't join the Catholic church. But Calvary Chapel is very similar to the Baptist church. So yeah, that's our story of being Baptist. Yeah.
Praise God.
Yeah.
Now let's pray for you.
Okay.
Jesus, we just come before you now. Lord, we ask for wisdom for the doctors. We ask you to just give them that insight that they don't normally have, Lord, to do everything just right, and let tomorrow just be smooth and let it all just go well. We just ask you to just keep getting Joe better and get him up and around, and just give him a lot of strength and joy, and Sandy and Joey and the whole family. Lord, just ask that you, the nurses seem so great, just keep the rotation of nurses really well, and just make sure they're on top of everything. And Lord, we just thank you for Joe and all of the wonderful adventures he's had through life, and just all the great stories and everything. We ask that you just continue to bless him and the family, and just give him strength and energy, and again, get him back on his feet right away. We just lift all this up to you now in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you.